What's up guys, welcome to another range day. Today we're going to be shooting my brand new Bul Armory Tac Pro 5-inch. Guys, if you enjoy the content that I'm making, then please make sure to like and subscribe and leave me a message down in the comments section. I hate asking, but it really does help with the algorithm a lot, so I'd really appreciate it. And if you ring the bell icon, you should get notifications when new videos are released as well. Additionally, if you want to get more Chester's Hobbies content, you can follow me on Instagram where you can see what I'm working on and get previews of upcoming videos. And I'm also pretty active on Reddit if you'd like to follow along with the conversations there. Alright, well that's enough of that, so let's talk about the gun of the day, my brand new 2024 Bul Armory Tac Pro. So Bul Armory is an interesting brand. They generally get a lot of praise in all the reviews that I've seen, but they aren't a brand that you can really walk into your local gun shop and ask to check out. Their guns are made in Israel and then imported to the US in batches and only available for purchase on their website for shipment to your local FFL. They seem to get shipments about 1 or 2 times a month, and their popular models can often sell out in 30 minutes or less. So all of that is to say, it is really not easy to get your hands on a gun from Bul Armory, so the average consumer ultimately ends up needing to rely on videos on YouTube and random commenters on Reddit if they want to learn more about their guns. And thanks to fellow Redditor Raging Bull 84, who pinged me on Reddit when they went live while my in-stock notifications went to my junk mail, I now have the opportunity to give back to the community by sharing my thoughts on this gun. So let's jump right in. Now this is my very first experience with a Bul Armory firearm. I have heard great things about them over the years, but I typically prefer to get my hands on things before committing to a purchase, especially when spending this kind of money, and none of their offerings in the past really compelled me enough to take that leap of faith. Then this year in 2024, I saw some very convincing reviews from Nightwood Guns and the Humble Marksman, which really put this gun on my radar, especially because I've been focusing so much on ported guns already this year, and this Tac Pro model that we have here actually comes with V8 style ports from the factory. So it really seemed like a great fit for the channel with everything that I'm doing this year. Thankfully, by the time I made that decision, I really didn't have to wait too long before I was able to score one in a recent drop, and when I got the call from my FFL that it had arrived, I was really excited to check it out. Now once I got there, my very first impression was, wow, what is that smell? And I am honestly not joking, guys. The oils that they used for transport have a pretty strong scent that's unlike anything I've smelled before. But putting that aside, the rest of my first impressions were all very positive. The gun comes from the factory with 4 20-round magazines, which is fantastic, especially since, despite this gun essentially being a 2011 or double-stack 1911 in nearly every way, Bul Armory is still using proprietary magazines instead of the general staccato 2011 magazine standard. And I honestly don't love that because I do have a bunch of other staccato mags, but I do think that including 4 mags with the gun definitely eases the sting on that a little bit. So I spent some time handling it in the shop while waiting for my background check to clear, and then I ran home, mounted a red dot on it, and took it out for some quick shots in my backyard to test it out. Which leads me to my very first shooting impression with this gun, which was actually kind of alarming. Now I have shot a lot of guns, guys, and not just that, but a lot of 9mm handguns, easily over 100 at this point. And I've got to be honest, guys, this gun is easily one of the softest shooting 9mm handguns that I've ever shot. It honestly blew me away right out of the gate. But that was just my very first shots, and at this point, I've put a little over 150 rounds through the gun, and so far, I have loved it. But I actually still haven't had the opportunity to bring it down for a dedicated range day yet. So that is exactly what we're going to fix today. But before we do that, let's dig into the details on the new Tac Pro 5-inch model for 2024, and then we'll hit the range. Now in general, I think it's pretty easy to look at the Bul Armory Tac Pro and think it looks kind of simple or understated or maybe even a little bit basic compared to other 2011 offerings out there. But there are actually a lot of great little details here that shows that a lot of thought went into this gun. So let's go top down here and start with the slide and barrel. So they're currently selling 2 different versions of the Tac series of guns, the standard and the Pro model. And there are really only 2 major differences. The Pro model that we have here has V8 style porting in these windowed slide cuts here and a blacked out serrated front sight, while the standard version has the same slide cuts but no ports in the barrel and then a fiber optic front sight instead. Obviously, with my focus on ported guns this year, I wanted to go with the Pro model. I think the window cuts here are simple and elegant, the ports look great, and from what I can tell so far, they're extremely effective. Then we've got a nice stainless steel bull barrel that is flush with the slide with a nice crown job that looks really clean. And I have to say, I'm kind of obsessed with these slide serrations. They are really deep but nicely rounded, so they're super grippy but not at all sharp. It is extremely fun and effective to rack the slide with these serrations. They're honestly some of my favorites that I've ever used, and the action of the slide is extremely smooth and pleasant to run. The slide to frame fit itself is impressively tight on this one, and that action is just buttery smooth. It feels great. Now the finish itself is a pretty basic PVD finish on the slide and frame. It's a good solid firearms finish, but it's definitely not as effective as a DLC type coating that you might see on a Staccato or an Atlas, for example, so it will show some scratches here and there, but the gun is still going to be well protected. It just might not look quite as shiny and nice after a lot of use. Then we have the Bul Armory Optic System, which they call BAO, and it's pretty awesome. Now I would prefer to not need optic plates at all, but in my opinion, this is the next best thing. So we have a really deep optic cut on the slide with an indexing boss that comes up from the slide to complete a male-female relationship with the optic plate, completely removing recoil stress from the mounting screws, which go right through the optic and directly into the slide. It's honestly a pretty great design, and I'm really impressed with it so far. Equally impressive is that Bul Armory actually bucks the current optic plate trend by giving their users 3 plates from the factory that cover many of the most popular optics choices on the market. Now again, I would love to see a world where optic plates are a thing of the past and everything is direct milled to the slide, but in my opinion, this is the next best thing, and you could even argue that this is even maybe a little bit better than direct milled because you're removing some of the stress from the screws with that recoil boss. So it's pretty cool, and I'm definitely liking it so far. So I mounted a Holosun 507 comp on here, which is one of my favorite optics. I do hope that they release a version that has a large solid dot at some point, like a 6, 8, or even 10 MOA dot instead of the other reticle options that we have here, but I do still really like using the 8 MOA circle and 2 MOA dot that I have on here right now. Now once I got it mounted, I noticed right away that the nice deep optic cut made it easy for my 507 comp to co-witness perfectly with the black serrated rear and black serrated front sights. It's a nice lower 1/3 co-witness, which is great to see, and because of the size of the 507 comp, I have plenty of space for that dot. They also went the extra mile and added some extra material to the slide to prevent the RMR screws from being exposed once installed, which is a subtle but welcome touch. Now internally, we have a standard 1911 or 2011 style guide rod with an 11-pound recoil spring, and Bul Armory actually includes a lighter 9-pound recoil spring in the box so that you can tune the gun to your ammo of choice. This was another nice touch, and for the Blazer 115 that I typically shoot, I did end up switching out to the 9-pound recoil spring and found it to help the gun run smoother and faster for me. I do have to say that I kinda wish it had a toolless guide rod. They actually sell one that I might grab at some point because I just find them a lot more convenient to use, especially when tuning and swapping between multiple springs. Now moving on down to the frame, one of the big changes from the old model to this new 2024 model is the steel frame with a full-length dust cover and a 1913 light rail. I think this gives the gun a great modern aesthetic that's also practical and functional by adding additional non-reciprocating weight to the muzzle end of the gun. Now the grip frame is interesting. It's a little smaller or narrower than other typical 2011 offerings, which could be helpful to those with smaller hands, but for me with medium-sized hands and long fingers, initially I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. But the more I've used it under both live fire and dry fire, it's really kind of growing on me. I'm definitely a big fan of the 25 lines per inch checkering on the front and back strap of the grip. It's really grippy without being overly aggressive. The left and right sides of the grip have an almost hand stipple type of feel that goes all the way up the grip just underneath the slide and safety, which is great for giving you a good place to get traction with your support hand using a nice high grip. Then we've got a traditional 2011 or 1911 style grip safety and beaver tail with a good memory bump to make it nice and easy to actuate, and then a really nice double undercut on the trigger guard to help with your support hand grip. The safety is ambidextrous and extremely positive when moving between both safe and fire, and it provides a nice shelf for your thumb while shooting without getting in the way of your grip. The slide lock and release lever is slightly extended and nicely blended with the grip with a really cool texture that I think looks awesome and also gives some good traction when used. That texture is then mirrored on the bottom of the safety lever, which is another one of those things that they really didn't have to do, but it ends up being a nice subtle touch. Now one kind of nice side effect of the smaller grip frame for me is that I can actually reach the slide stop and release lever without breaking my grip quite as much as I normally would have to on a typical 2011. I do still have to break my grip a little bit, but certainly not as much, so that's a bonus for me. The magazine release button is good. It's a pretty standard 2011 style magazine release that's drilled and tapped in case you want to put any sort of extension on there. So far, I found it to be very comfortable to reach with my primary hand thumb without breaking my grip, so for now I'm leaving it as is. The included magwell is nice and seems to do a pretty good job of guiding the magazine into the grip frame, and it's removable with a spare pin included in the box if you'd rather not have it. And then finally we have the trigger, and it's very good. We've got a very short take up and then a firm wall with no creep, just a little bit of pressure, and then we get a nice, crisp, and light break. The reset is adjustable with the over travel screw in the trigger, and I was able to get mine super short with a good tactile response. Now the trigger shoe itself is actually modular, so you can change out your trigger shoe with a few different options that Bul Armory offers pretty easily. It comes from the factory with their short curved trigger installed, and you can swap it out to a short flat, or medium curve to customize the trigger pull to your hands. Now this is a really cool idea, but the one area that I really think Bul Armory really kind of missed on is that you have to remove the over travel screw to remove the trigger shoe, which by itself is totally fine, but they didn't put a matching hole in the trigger guard so that you could do it quickly and easily. So instead you need to sit there for several minutes making 20% turns with a tiny Allen key and a very long over travel screw. It does work, and it certainly will be a lot easier than taking the gun all the way apart to swap the trigger out for many people out there, but I do personally think it could have been done a little bit better here. Now originally, I thought the short curved trigger was a little bit too short for me. I had trouble getting a consistent shot cadence with it. So I swapped it out for the medium curved trigger, which then felt like it was a little bit too long, again kind of giving me issues with my shot cadence. And then finally, I tried the flat medium trigger that you see here, and for me, it is absolutely perfect and completely transformed the feel of the trigger for me. It feels great now. In general, I would say this is a very good 2011 trigger. It's definitely better than the Springfield Prodigy, but maybe not quite as good as an STI or Staccato, and definitely not as good as an Atlas. That said, it is really close to an STI or a Staccato in my eyes, and that's certainly not a bad place to be. So that just about covers it, guys. I've been loving this gun so far, and I'm super excited to finally get it out for a full range day today. So let's hit the range and see how the Bul Armory Tac Pro performs. All right, guys, we got my first shots of the day here with the Bul Armory Tac Pro 5-inch. Let's see how it feels. Oh boy, this is going to be a ton of fun, guys. Let's do this. So guys, a lot of people have been asking me about these new Infinity targets that I've been using. These are self-healing, weatherproof targets made from recycled rubber by Infinite Defense, and they're estimated to last for about 7,000 rounds, which is pretty impressive. I love that I can safely shoot them at any range that I want, even point blank, and all I have to do to reset them is hit them with a little spray paint. I would definitely recommend them as convenient, portable targets for up-close training and fun on the range. If you want to try some out for yourself, you can use the code Chester10 to save a little bit on some great targets. Alright, now back to the video. Alright guys, this thing is absolutely incredible. I honestly can't believe this is even real. This is hands down, without a doubt, the softest shooting 9mm handgun that I've ever shot, and my favorite handgun I've shot so far this year. And to clarify that for you, since sometimes these videos are released in a different order than they were filmed, this is softer and faster shooting for me than my full-size ported Shadow 2, which was previously my favorite gun of the year. But now it has been dethroned, and the only other guns that I think can potentially unseat the Tac Pro are my STI DVC-P or the Atlas Erebus. I'm actually planning on comparing all three of these amazing guns in the very near future, so make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Now, I put 350 rounds of Blazer 115 to the Tac Pro today with 0 failures and with no fatigue in my hands and no uncomfortable hot spots on the grip frame. It was incredibly soft shooting with a very mild recoil impulse, and those V8 ports got my sights back on target extremely fast. Now, as a quick sidebar here, there's been a lot of conversation recently about avoiding shooting plated bullets in the Tac Pro, and the Blazer 115 rounds that I fired today are indeed plated. Now that's something that I did know at one point, but I had completely forgotten about, and Bul Armory does now officially recommend avoiding plated bullets like Blazer 115 in their guns, which is news that came out after I finished filming this video. Now the reason for that is that plated bullets have a thinner jacket than typical full metal jacket rounds, and in certain ported or compensated barrel configurations, that plating can shear off while the bullet travels down the barrel and crosses the ports or compensators, leaving lead deposits in the barrel and potentially affecting accuracy. Now at this point, I've put about 550 rounds of Blazer 115 through my Tac Pro, and I personally haven't noticed any lead buildup or accuracy issues yet in my Tac Pro example. At this point, it does seem like it would probably be a good idea to use different ammo in this gun, but I have to admit that I'm stacked pretty deep on Blazer 115 for the purpose of keeping reviews consistent and using the same ammo throughout, and up until this point, I have easily shot over 5,000 rounds of Blazer 115 in various ported and compensated barrels. Now, as far as I know, I've never had any issues, and all of those guns still run great for me. But please, definitely take that with a grain of salt here, guys. If the manufacturer says you shouldn't use plated bullets, we should all probably heed their advice. Now, getting back to the performance of the Tac Pro on the range, one thing that I forgot to mention in my intro is that they offer this gun in 2 different barrel lengths. There's this 5-inch model that we have here, and then they also have a 4¼ inch model. Now, a lot of times I'll go with the 4¼ inch model because although it may have a little bit more felt recoil, it'll often cycle faster and therefore be faster back on target. That said, I've been making that choice with a lot of guns recently, so I decided to give this one a shot in the full 5-inch government style. And man, am I glad I did. Not only is it legitimately the softest shooting 9mm handgun that I've ever experienced, but with a good strong grip, it is back on target fast, and it cycles quickly enough to maintain accuracy at speed if I'm doing my part. The majority of the time I was able to track my dot without it even leaving the window of the 507 comp. It is definitely the softest and flattest shooting 5-inch 9mm handgun that I've ever shot, without a doubt. Now the safety lever was very positive and easy to actuate, the slide was ultra smooth, and these serrations are on a completely different level from most other manufacturers out there. They feel fantastic. I will say that after multiple rapid fire strings, the slide did start to get a little hot, but it was also 95 degrees with high humidity, so that might have played a factor as well. Now reloads were a blast. I found the magwell to be really effective, and the only real issue that I had was a handful of times that I dropped the slide too quickly as I was pushing myself to go faster and reaching the limits of my current capabilities. Now I did have to break my grip on my right hand a little more than I would have liked to drop the slide with my primary hand thumb, but with the smaller grip frame we have here, it was definitely easier for me than with most other 2011s, and for the most part I found that it worked fine for me and I was able to get back on target without too many issues. Now I was a little bit worried that the grip would be too small, but it honestly felt great. It was very comfortable with no hot spots, and it gave me enough traction to control recoil without getting too aggressive. The medium flat trigger shoe was excellent and definitely the right move for me personally. It was really responsive and easy to run the exact trigger cadence that I wanted to. The trigger was just fast and crisp without getting in my way at all. I loved it. This was definitely a huge and inexpensive upgrade for me over the original short curved trigger shoe that gave me occasional trigger freeze because it was too short for my long fingers. Now a lot of people ask me about debris when shooting ported guns, and up until now I've never really experienced it. However, today was actually the first time that I felt it. It happened to me once today during a course of fire when I was shooting directly next to a barrel that I was leaning around as cover. The V8 ports blasted some gas into the barrel and then bounced back and hit me in the arm. Now it was a little bit uncomfortable and it did catch me off guard, but no blood was drawn and it didn't really hurt, it just kind of surprised me as it's a sensation that I haven't felt before. And I was able to continue the string exactly as I had planned without any hiccups. Now to avoid this in the future, I would probably either lean further out in front of the barrel to avoid the ports directing gases into it, it, or maybe stand a little bit further back from the barrel. Either way, it really wasn't a big deal, but people do ask about it a lot, so I thought that I'd mention it. People also tend to worry about how dirty ports might get your guns, and yeah, this one is no exception, guys. Especially with this stainless steel barrel, the carbon on the barrel is very noticeable after a decent range session. But the good news is, 98% of this carbon literally just wiped away with a shop towel and no CLP in about 5 seconds. It was actually really impressive. The small amount of baked on carbon came off in about a minute with a brass pick and brush, and now it looks nearly new again. So I guess if you hate cleaning your guns and you never do it, maybe it'll bother you, but honestly it was so easy and fast to do that it really didn't bother me in the slightest personally. But beyond that, guys, I just simply can't emphasize enough how amazing and fun this gun is to shoot. In addition to being super soft and flat shooting, it's also incredibly well balanced, making rapid target transitions feel natural and effortless. And mounting my Surefire X300 weapon light on the rail for that extra non-reciprocating weight at the end of the gun made it even faster and flatter shooting for me. I honestly think that this gun might represent the absolute best value in 2011s in 2024 in my opinion. So much so that I'm actually going to be filming a comparison video soon comparing the Tac Pro 5-inch model to the Staccato XC and the Atlas Erebus, which cost nearly 2 and 3 times as much as the Tac Pro respectively. The fact that this gun can even be in the conversation enough to warrant a direct comparison video against some of the finest shooting handguns in the world really exemplifies the exceptional performance that this gun provides in my eyes. It's unfortunate they can be so hard to come by in the current market, but if you're able to get your hands on one and you generally like the 2011 platform, I can wholeheartedly recommend the Tac Pro 5-inch model without hesitation. So that's going to be all for today, guys. I've got a ton of handgun reviews on the way, as well as more ARs, AKs, PCCs, and shotguns. So remember to like and subscribe, ring the bell, stay tuned, and thanks for stopping by.